Hello. On behalf of the director, Ian Wardropper, I welcome you to the Frick Collection and to this Centre for the History of Collecting Symposium, America and the Art of Flanders. My name is Stephen Berry, Andrew W. Mellon Chief Librarian of the Frick Art Reference Library, of which the Centre for the History of Collecting is a very important part, and it helps make the library a research institute. The Centre holds symposia like this one, panels, study days. It publishes books. It awards fellowships. 2 former fellows will be speaking today. It runs a biannual book prize and has created and maintained the award-winning archives directory for the history of collecting, available on the Frick's website in the research pages. I'd like to thank the Centre's advisory panel for their counsel, the Samuel H. Kress and Leon Levy Foundations for support of our fellowship programs, and Joyce Cowan for her financial support of this symposium. I'd also like to thank Inga Rees, Director of the Centre, Esmée Quodbach and Samantha Deutsch, Assistant Directors. In the nearly 10 years of the existence of the Centre, they have done so much to create the very discipline of the history of collecting. And in particular, I'd like to single out Esmée, who has worked so tirelessly on this particular symposium. And lastly, importantly, I'd like to thank the speakers of today and tomorrow. I'm looking forward very much to this program. I'd just like to ask you to please turn your cell phones to silent mode and remind you that our exhibition, Van Dyck, The Anatomy of Portraiture, the Frick's biggest exhibition to date, will be open for viewing at the end of today's program. I will now hand over the proceedings to my colleague, Esmée Quodbach.
Thank you, Stephen, and good afternoon. My name is Esmée Quodbach. I'm the Assistant Director of the Center for the History of Collecting here at the Frick Collection. And I would like to welcome all of you to our 2-day symposium, America and the Art of Flanders, collecting paintings by Rubens, Van Dyck, and their circles. By now, many of you have become regulars at the Center's twice-yearly symposia, and you are thus aware that these events are designed to focus on patterns of collecting one particular type of art, 17th century Flemish painting in this case. However, our symposia also give us an opportunity to explore how collecting in a certain area relates to the larger socio-political and economic context that is such an essential part of the field of collecting history. This is why some of the papers you will hear this weekend will emphasize marketplace issues or the influence of literature, advisors, and dealers on the behavior of collectors. As always, this symposium was organized with the thought that all of the papers should resonate with both general and specialized audience participants. We do this knowing that the content of presentations is absorbed differently by different listeners, and we can all gain from the exchange of reactions and ideas. Ultimately, our hope is that this occasion, complemented by the Center's other programs, will encourage further research to expand and enrich our knowledge of collecting history in this country. We couldn't be more pleased with the exceptionally distinguished group of scholars who have joined us this weekend to illuminate why and how Americans have engaged with Flemish paintings over the centuries. For this, I have to single out Arthur Wheelock with heartfelt thanks for spending so much time brainstorming with me about shaping the program itself and judging whom we should approach to speak on which topics. But even with Arthur's unstinting help, the symposium would never have come together without the help of my 2 colleagues at our center, Inga Rees and Samantha Deutsch. They have left no detail of the planning of this symposium to chance, and I cannot thank them enough. My special thanks too go to Ian Wardropper, director of the Frick collection, and Stephen Barry, the Andrew W. Mellon Chief Librarian of the Frick Art Reference Library, for their support for all of the center's activities. And Ian very much regrets not being able to join us for this occasion. Last, but far from least, I would like to thank George Cowan and others for their support of this symposium and for their recognition of the important ways an event such as this kindles new ideas. And now to the subject of our symposium. For me, this topic is particularly close to my heart. As a native of the Netherlands, I grew up not far from Flanders, and I first visited the Rubens house in Antwerp as a teenager. Later, as a student at Utrecht University, I studied 17th century Dutch painting, and I became intimately familiar with the art of Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Frans Hals. Over the years, I've become more and more interested in the history of collecting and in America's taste for old masters in particular. To take Dutch painting as an example, it is quite remarkable that so many works by Rembrandt, Hals, and Vermeer are now in the United States. In fact, some of the best works by these masters are in this very building, or within easy walking distance, a little further up on Fifth Avenue. How did this happen? With this question in mind, our center organized a 2-day symposium on the history of Dutch painting in America in 2009. The papers that were given then have since been published as the first volume in a new book series, the Frick Collection Studies in the History of Collecting, co-published by the center with Pennsylvania State University Press. And I should add that many of the essays in our Dutch volume were written by scholars who will be talking to us today and tomorrow about Flemish art. For our center, a symposium on collecting Flemish painting seemed a logical next choice. And in fact, some people may feel that today's symposium is a bit overdue. In the future, we also hope to be able to publish today's and tomorrow's papers in another volume in our series that tells the story of Flemish art in this country. You will soon hear more of this story as our speakers will chronicle the peaks and valleys of America's taste, and now and then the distaste for the often colorful and energized imagery that characterizes Flemish art of the 17th century. The direct inspiration for our current symposium was, of course, the lovely Van Dyck show that is now on view here at the Frick. The wonderful paintings that are on display tell many stories, and quite a few of them have intriguing provenances. And as Stephen already mentioned, the Van Dyck exhibition will be open for a brief period for viewing, following the last talk and Q&A. So we hope you will be able to take a peek then. We are also very fortunate that Adam Aker, a former Anne Poulet Fellow here at the Frick and guest curator of the Van Dyck exhibition, will be giving the last talk today, and he will be speaking about the American Van Dyck.